I wasn't supposed to come home that night. After 10 years working overseas, I returned to California quietly, wanting to surprise my mother, the woman I bought that house for, the woman I promised I'd always protect. I imagined her smiling, opening the door, pulling me into one of her warm hugs. But the moment I stepped onto the porch, something felt wrong. New cars I didn't recognize sat in the driveway. A security camera blinked above the door, one I never installed. And when I rang the bell, a stranger answered. Not my mother. Not even someone who looked like she belonged here. Then I heard it. A soft, trembling voice I knew better than my own, followed by someone speaking to her like she was beneath them. And when she finally appeared, eyes lowered, apron stained, hands shaking, I realized the truth that shattered me. My mother wasn't living in her home anymore. She was serving in it. That night, I vowed to get her justice. The taxi slowed as we turned onto the old street I used to bike down every summer. I pressed my forehead against the window, trying to calm the mixture of excitement and nerves swirling in my stomach. 10 years abroad. 10 years of welding ships in humid Singapore docks, saving every cent so Mom could live comfortably. Every call, every message, every photo of her smiling kept me going on the hardest days. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times. Mom standing at the doorway, hands over her mouth, crying, "Emma, my baby?" Me dropping my bags and hugging her so tight she'd complain I was crushing her bones. But when the taxi stopped, my smile faded. The house looked wrong. The white fence I paid to have repainted last year was chipped and dull. The flower bed once filled with Mom's beloved lilies was nothing but dry soil. A luxury SUV I'd never seen before was parked right in front of the driveway. And the curtains in the living room were different, too modern, too expensive, too… not her. My chest tightened. Mom must be redecorating, I whispered to myself, though even I didn't believe it. I pulled my suitcase up the walkway, noticing scuff marks along the steps, as if furniture had been dragged carelessly across them. Just before I reached the door, something else caught my eye. A security camera blinking red above the porch. Mom was terrified of technology. She once cried because she thought she broke a microwave by pressing the popcorn button twice. There was no universe where she installed a surveillance system on her own. My heartbeat picked up. Still, I rang the doorbell. It wasn't Mom who answered. The door swung open to reveal a woman in her mid-30s, wearing designer leggings and holding a latte like she lived there. She looked confused, no, startled when she saw me. "Yes? Can I help you?" she asked, tone clipped. I forced a polite smile. "I'm looking for my mom, Linda Carter." Behind the woman, a man appeared. Tall, arms crossed, eyes narrowing at me like I was an intruder. And then, faintly, from deeper inside the house, I heard it. A small, tired voice I would recognize anywhere. "Did someone come to the door?" My mother. But not the mother I remembered. The woman in front of me stiffened. The man shot her a warning look. My stomach dropped. Something was very, very wrong. "Mom?" I called out, stepping forward on instinct. But the woman in the doorway, Vanessa, as I would soon learn, quickly blocked me with a stiff, artificial smile. "She's busy right now," she said, voice sugary but eyes sharp. Busy? My mother didn't get busy when her daughter came home after 10 years. I pushed gently past her before she could stop me. The man, Brian, moved as if to block me too, but he hesitated, glancing back toward the hallway. And that hesitation told me everything. Something inside that house wasn't meant for me to see. "Mom?" I called again, louder this time. I heard shuffling, then a soft gasp. "Emma?" Her voice cracked in a way that made my throat close. I followed the sound into the living room and nearly stopped breathing. Mom stood at the edge of the hall, holding a damp dish towel, her hands trembling. Her hair, once neatly brushed every morning, hung loosely, streaked with gray she never had before. Her clothes were faded. Not dirty, but worn in a way that didn't belong to the woman who ironed everything, even her pajamas. But what shattered me wasn't her appearance. It was her expression. She looked at me like she didn't know whether she was allowed to, as if waiting for someone else's approval before reacting to her own daughter. "Mom." I stepped toward her, heart pounding. She opened her mouth to speak, but Brian's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Linda, the kitchen isn't finished." Mom flinched. My mother, the woman who worked 3 jobs to raise me, who never backed down from anyone, actually flinched. I turned to him slowly. "What did you just say?" He shrugged, putting on a lazy, dismissive smile. "We all contribute around here. Linda helps out. It keeps her active. She doesn't need to help out. This is her home." Vanessa folded her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "Actually, it's our home now, too." My stomach twisted. What is that supposed to mean? Before she answered, Mom grabbed my wrist gently, whispering, "Emma, let's not do this here." Her voice trembled. Her eyes begged me not to make them angry. I felt heat rise behind my eyes, but I swallowed it down. I had to stay calm. For her, I took a slow breath. "Okay, Mom, let's talk. Just us, please." Brian exchanged a look with Vanessa, a silent communication I couldn't read, but didn't like. After a tense moment, he muttered, "Fine, 5 minutes." 5 minutes? Who were these people to decide how long I could speak to my own mother? But Mom tugged my hand again, urging me toward the backyard, away from them. As soon as the sliding door closed behind us, her facade broke. Her shoulders shook. Tears filled her eyes. "Emma," she whispered. And then the words that made my blood run cold. "I'm so sorry you had to see me like this." The moment the sliding door clicked shut behind us, Mom's shoulders dropped as if she had been holding her breath for months. She sank onto the old wooden bench under the lemon tree, the one she used to sit on while drinking her morning tea. Now she looked like she could barely hold herself upright. "Emma," her voice broke. "I didn't want you to see me like this." I knelt in front of her, taking her cold hands into mine. "Mom, please, tell me what's going on. Who are those people? Why are they here? Why are you—" My throat tightened. "Acting like a guest in your own home?" She squeezed her eyes shut, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I tried, sweetheart. I tried to manage everything on my own after you left, but I got lonely and tired. And when Brian and Vanessa showed up, they seemed kind at first." "Showed up?" I frowned. "You didn't invite them?" She shook her head. "They said they needed a place temporarily, just for a week. Their apartment lease ended and they had nowhere to go. And you let them in," I whispered. Mom nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I couldn't turn them away. They were friends of your cousin. They were polite. They helped with groceries. They cooked dinner. For the first month, they made me feel like I wasn't alone." My stomach twisted. And then, her face fell. It changed. Slowly at first. They started handling my mail, saying they'd take care of bills. They insisted on managing the house repairs because I wasn't strong enough. They said I needed to rest more, then later said I wasn't contributing enough. Her voice dropped to a hoarse whisper. "They told me I should be grateful." I felt my jaw clench. "Grateful for what?" "For giving me company." She inhaled shakily. "They said I needed to stay active, so they asked me to help with small chores. Then more. Then everything." I closed my eyes, fury simmering beneath my skin. "What about your phone? Your friends? Why didn't you call me?" She looked away, shame flickering across her face. "They said the phone confused me, that I wasn't using it correctly. So they kept it in the drawer and told me to ask them if I needed to call anyone." "Mom," I whispered, heart cracking. She gripped my hands desperately. "I wanted to call you. I tried. But they always had a reason to take the phone away. They said your job overseas was too demanding and I shouldn't disturb you." My blood turned to ice. "And the house, Mom? They said you transferred it." Her eyes widened, genuine panic rushing through them. No, Emma. I would never. I don't remember signing anything. If I did, they must have put something in front of me when I was tired. They said it was just paperwork to fix a plumbing issue." She choked on her next words. "I didn't know, I swear." I wrapped my arms around her trembling shoulders. "Mom, listen to me. None of this is your fault. They took advantage of you. They isolated you. They manipulated you." She sobbed into my chest, her voice shaking. "I thought I was losing my mind. I thought maybe I did owe them something. They kept saying I needed them, that you were too far away." I pulled back, lifting her chin gently so she could see the truth in my eyes. "You're not alone anymore. I'm home. And I'm not letting anyone treat you like this ever again." Behind us, through the glass door, I saw Vanessa watching, arms crossed, expression cold. And I knew then, whatever had happened so far was only the beginning. I didn't wait. The moment I felt Mom start to shake in my arms, I grabbed my phone with one hand and wrapped the other around her shoulders. "Emma, what are you doing?" she whispered, fear flickering in her eyes. "Something I should have done the second I stepped inside that house," I said quietly. "I'm calling Daniel. Daniel Brooks, my best friend from high school. Now a civil and elder rights attorney in San Francisco." Mom stiffened. "No, don't involve lawyers. They'll get upset." I looked her straight in the eye. "That's the point." I stepped farther from the sliding glass door so Brian and Vanessa couldn't hear and pressed call. Daniel picked up on the second ring. "Emma, you okay?" "No," I said, my voice cracked with a mix of fury and disbelief. "I need you at my mother's house. Now." Daniel didn't ask questions. "When should I come?" "Immediately. I'm on my way." When I hung up, Mom clutched my arm anxiously. "Emma, I don't want trouble." "Mom, the trouble already exists," I said softly. "I'm just turning the lights on so we can see it." Before she could answer, the sliding door opened behind us. Vanessa stepped out, arms crossed, posture radiating fake confidence. "5 minutes are up," she said. "Linda needs to get back to the kitchen." I turned slowly. "Her name is Mom, and she doesn't need to do anything for you." Brian appeared behind her, jaw tight. "This isn't your place anymore, Emma. You left. We've been the ones helping her." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Helping? You mean isolating her? Controlling her? Making her do all the work? He stiffened but forced a smirk. "Careful with your accusations." "Careful?" I stepped closer. "I've barely started." Vanessa huffed. "Look, if Linda wants us here then—" "Does she?" I cut in sharply. "Does she actually want you here, or did you just convince her she had no choice?" Their eyes flickered just enough for me to see the truth. Mom tugged my sleeve gently. "Emma, let's go inside, please." "No, Mom," I whispered. "We're not going back in." Brian's voice sharpened. "You can't take her anywhere. She lives here." I smiled coldly. "Not for long." Just then, a silver Honda pulled up in front of the house. Daniel stepped out wearing a navy suit, his briefcase in one hand, sunglasses in the other. He looked like the kind of man who didn't lose cases, and the kind of man Brian would hate to meet. Vanessa muttered. "Who is that?" Daniel approached calmly. "Good afternoon. I'm attorney Daniel Brooks. I'm here to speak with my clients." Brian sputtered. You're what?" Daniel gave him a polite, sharp smile. "Emma and Mrs. Carter have retained my services. Effective immediately." Vanessa's expression cracked. "You can't just—" "Legally," Daniel interrupted. "I absolutely can." He turned to Mom. "Mrs. Carter, with your permission, I'd like to review any documents Brian or Vanessa had you sign." Her voice trembled. I don't remember what I signed." "That's all I needed to hear," Daniel replied gently. "Emma, let's get your mother out of here. Now." Brian stepped forward. "You can't take her." Daniel raised a hand. "Attempting to prevent her from leaving is considered intimidation of a protected adult. I strongly suggest you step aside." Brian froze. Vanessa paled. And just like that, the power shifted. Mom slipped her hand into mine. "Emma, will we be safe?" I squeezed her hand. "Mom, you're safe now. I promise." We walked out of the gate quietly, firmly leaving Brian and Vanessa on the porch, their manufactured confidence crumbling right before my eyes. For the first time since I arrived, I felt a spark of control return to my chest. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Daniel drove us straight to his office, an old brick building overlooking the bay. Mom sat in the back seat, silent, clutching her purse like it was the only thing she had left in the world. She looked so small. Too small for someone who once carried our entire life on her back. When we reached Daniel's office, he gently guided her inside. "Mrs. Carter, please take a seat. We're going to go through this step by step." Mom nodded nervously. "Daniel, I don't want anyone hurt." Daniel offered her a soft smile. "We're not hurting anyone. We're uncovering the truth." He pulled a legal pad toward him. "Let me ask a few questions, okay?" Mom took a shaky breath. "Oh, okay." Daniel clicked his pen. "First, did you ever give Brian or Vanessa permission to handle your mail, bills, or bank accounts?" "No," Mom whispered. "They said I wasn't managing things well. They said they needed to help." Daniel wrote quickly. "Did they ever explain what you were signing?" She shook her head. "They always said it was small things. A repair invoice, a package delivery, a form for the HOA." She hesitated. Sometimes they put the papers in front of me when I was tired. They said I needed to sign right away. My heart clenched. Daniel continued. And you don't recall signing anything about transferring the house? No, never. I would never give away Emma's house. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Daniel turned to me. Emma, do you have access to the original property records? In my email. The title should still be in Mom's name. Send it to me. I forwarded it immediately. Daniel tapped his keyboard, comparing documents. Within seconds, his eyebrows shot up. There it is. The transfer, recorded 2 months ago. Mom gasped softly. 2 months? I leaned closer to the screen. Daniel, that signature looks nothing like hers. He nodded. And the notarization stamp is from a notary who's been flagged before for irregularities. He looked at Mom kindly. Mrs. Carter, I'm almost certain this was forged. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Daniel, am I in trouble? He shook his head. No, they are. Daniel stood, grabbing a stack of forms. We need to build a complete timeline. Emma, I'll need you to document everything what you saw, what your mother said, even your impressions. Anything can help. I can do that. And we'll need evidence from neighbors. If they saw any exploitation, it will be crucial. I nodded again. I'll go to the neighborhood tomorrow. Just then, Daniel's assistant knocked and entered. Daniel, I think you need to see this. She handed him an envelope. The return address made my skin crawl. It was from Mom's bank. Daniel opened it, eyes scanning rapidly. Then he froze. Emma, he said carefully, your mother's savings account has been drained. Mom's breath caught. What? No, that can't be. I barely spend anything. Which is why, Daniel said grimly, these transactions stand out. Large purchases, frequent ATM withdrawals, charges from luxury stores, all in the last year. I felt heat spread across my face, rage so sharp it almost felt cold. Brian and Vanessa, I whispered. They stole her money. Daniel nodded slowly. And there's more. Look. He slid the statements toward me. One line repeated over and over. Authorization, B. Miller. Brian Miller. Mom covered her face. Oh God. Emma, how could I let this happen? I knelt beside her. Mom, stop. This isn't your fault. They isolated you, manipulated you. This is on them. Daniel set the papers aside and folded his hands. We have more than enough to open a full investigation. Financial exploitation, fraudulent transfer, elder abuse, coercion. This is severe. Mom whispered. Will they go to jail? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Then he said, if the evidence continues like this, it's very possible. Silence filled the room. For the first time since I returned home, I saw something flicker in Mom's expression. Not fear, not shame, but hope. Emma, she whispered, gripping my hand. Thank you for coming back. I squeezed her hand tightly. I'm not going anywhere. Not again. And we're getting everything back, your home, your peace, your life. Daniel stood, gathering the files with purpose. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow, we start building the case. And for the first time, I felt ready for war. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. Mom rested in the guest room of Daniel's office suite, the safest place he could find on such short notice. Meanwhile, I sat in the conference room with a cup of cold coffee, staring at the mountain of documents spread before me. Bank statements, forged papers, neighbor testimonies Daniel was collecting. A timeline of transactions Brian had signed using authorization he never legally had. Every page made my chest tighter. By sunrise, Daniel returned with a stack of printed forms. Emma, he said, voice firm but calm. The county's Elder Protection Unit wants to conduct a preliminary hearing. Today. My pulse jumped. Today? Already? He nodded. Everything you provided. It's serious. They want to question your mother. Then confront Brian and Vanessa directly. I took a shaky breath. Okay, let's do it. Mom looked terrified when Daniel explained the hearing, but she nodded quietly. I'll do whatever you think is right, she whispered. And so, by noon, we were sitting in a government building under fluorescent lights, facing a long table where a mediator, a social worker, and a legal officer sat reviewing our file. Mom was called first. She answered every question with trembling honesty, how she was pressured to sign papers she didn't understand, how her phone was taken, how she felt small, unwelcome, burdensome in her own home. Then came the question that made my stomach twist. Mrs. Carter, did you ever intend to give your home to Brian and Vanessa? Mom shook her head quickly, tears filling her eyes. No, never. That house was my daughter's gift to me. My home. I only signed what they put in front of me because they said I had to. The mediator nodded slowly. Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Your statement is clear. The door opened. Brian and Vanessa were escorted in. Vanessa looked furious. Brian looked like he'd been awake all night rehearsing excuses. The moment Vanessa spotted me, her lips curled. So you're the one stirring all this up? I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The mediator gestured for them to sit. This hearing concerns allegations of elder exploitation, coercion, financial manipulation, and fraudulent transfer of property. Vanessa scoffed loudly. Oh, please. Linda practically begged us to stay. She couldn't handle things alone. Mom flinched. Daniel calmly placed a protective hand on her shoulder. Brian cleared his throat. We didn't force her to do anything. She helped because she wanted to. The mediator cut him off. We have statements from neighbors describing Mrs. Carter doing all household chores alone, appearing distressed, and being reprimanded frequently. We also have records of her phone being accessed without permission. Vanessa's confidence wavered. That doesn't prove anything. Daniel leaned forward. But this does. He slid the forged title transfer across the table. Here's the so-called transfer of ownership. Not only does Mrs. Carter deny signing it, but a handwriting analyst flagged inconsistencies. And your chosen notary, Daniel added with a cold smile, is currently under state investigation. Brian's face drained of color. That's not our fault. The notary must have… And the bank withdrawals? Daniel continued. The thousands drained from Mrs. Carter's savings? All authorized by you, Brian? How do you explain those? Brian opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The legal officer turned to Vanessa. And the purchases at high-end stores? Jewelry? Furniture? Those were made using Mrs. Carter's funds. Vanessa snapped. Well, she didn't need the money. She wasn't using it. My jaw tightened. Mom covered her mouth in shock. The mediator closed the file. We've heard enough. Based on Mrs. Carter's testimony and the evidence presented, we determine there is substantial proof of elder exploitation and fraudulent property transfer. Vanessa shot up from her chair. You can't take the house away from us. The mediator didn't even blink. The house was never legally yours. Effective immediately, the transfer is void. Brian Miller and Vanessa Miller are prohibited from entering or residing on the property. A criminal investigation will proceed. Mom gasped softly. I exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Vanessa turned on Brian angrily. This is your fault, Brian muttered. Mine? You said we could get away with it. Security approached. Please exit the room. Their voices faded as they were escorted out. Mom leaned against me, trembling with relief. Emma, is it over? I held her close. No, Mom, this isn't the end. I looked toward the door where Brian and Vanessa had vanished. It's the beginning of the end, and we're not backing down. For the first time since coming home, I felt the tide turn. Tomorrow, we would prepare for court. And this time, we were ready. The court date arrived faster than I expected. For weeks, Daniel and his team built the case piece by piece: interview transcripts, financial audits, handwriting analysis, recorded statements from neighbors, and a full psychological evaluation of Mom, confirming the emotional distress she had suffered. When the day finally came, Mom clung to my arm as we walked into the courthouse. Her steps were slow, careful, but steady. She wasn't the same fragile woman I found in the kitchen that first day. She was stronger now, still shaken, but standing with purpose. Inside, Brian and Vanessa sat at the defendant's table, looking vastly different from the confident homeowners they pretended to be. Brian wore a wrinkled suit that didn't quite fit. Vanessa looked pale, hiding behind sunglasses even indoors. Her hands never stopped fidgeting. I took my seat beside Mom and Daniel. Across the room, Vanessa shot me a glare, sharp, bitter, desperate. For once, it didn't shake me. The judge entered. Court is now in session. The prosecutor stood first. Your Honor, this case involves the exploitation of a vulnerable adult, fraudulent transfer of real property, unauthorized financial withdrawals, and coercive control. Vanessa rolled her eyes. Brian swallowed hard. The prosecutor continued. The defendants systematically manipulated Mrs. Linda Carter, isolated her from her daughter, and pressured her into signing documents she did not understand. Daniel leaned toward me and whispered, "This is going well." Then Mom was called to the stand. Her voice trembled at first, but as she spoke, something shifted. She described the loneliness, the manipulation, the pressure, the way they made her feel like a burden, the way her own home slowly stopped feeling like hers. She never raised her voice, never exaggerated. Her calm honesty was more powerful than anything. At one point, the prosecutor asked, "Mrs. Carter, why didn't you reach out to your daughter?" Mom swallowed. They always found a way to take my phone. I thought I would cause trouble, and they told me Emma was too busy to care." I closed my eyes, fighting tears. Then came Brian and Vanessa's turn. Brian's lawyer tried to paint them as caretakers who were overwhelmed, but every excuse fell apart under cross-examination. Vanessa claimed Mom liked helping out, until Daniel produced a video clip Mr. Ramirez had captured of her speaking sharply to Mom while she cleaned the porch. Vanessa froze. The courtroom murmured. Brian insisted Mom had voluntarily transferred the house, until the handwriting expert declared the signature on the title transfer was highly inconsistent with her natural writing. The final blow came when the bank investigator testified that all withdrawals had been traced to Brian's personal purchases, not household expenses. Brian's face turned ashen. When all evidence had been presented, the judge took a long moment to review the notes. Then she spoke clearly, firmly. "The defendants exploited a vulnerable adult for personal gain. The property transfer is hereby void. The defendants are ordered to repay all misappropriated funds and are restricted from contacting Mrs. Carter or approaching her residence. Additionally, mandatory counseling and probation will be assigned. Further criminal penalties will be determined in a separate sentencing hearing." Mom let out a breath, a shaky, disbelieving exhale. I squeezed her hand. It was over. Truly, fully over. As Brian and Vanessa were escorted out, Vanessa hissed under her breath, "You'll regret this, Emma." I met her glare calmly. "No," I whispered. "I'm done regretting. And my mother is done suffering." Outside the courthouse, sunlight warmed Mom's face. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Emma, we got our home back." I wrapped my arms around her. "Yes, Mom, and we're never losing it again." For the first time in years, the house felt like ours again. When Mom and I stepped through the front door after the court ruling, the air felt different, lighter, almost like the walls themselves exhaled. There were still signs of what had happened. Furniture that wasn't hers, curtains she never chose, and a refrigerator filled with food she didn't even like. But the moment she walked into the living room, something warm flickered in her eyes. "Emma, it feels like I can breathe again." I smiled. "We'll make it feel like home, Mom, I promise." And we did. Over the next few weeks, I took time off work, more time than I'd taken in 10 years. We cleaned the house together, room by room. I let Mom choose everything. New curtains, new dishes, even the color of the front door. She chose yellow. "It's the color of sunlight," she told me with a smile. "The house needs sunlight again." I watched her slowly regain herself. She laughed more. She slept more peacefully. She started humming while watering the little potted plants she bought for the windowsill. Every day felt like we were reclaiming something they had tried to take from her. Mom's therapist told me privately, "She's healing faster because you're here. Presence matters more than anything." That sentence stayed with me. One morning, as we sat on the porch sipping tea, Mom spoke softly without looking at me. "Emma, I'm sorry if I ever made you feel guilty for leaving. You left to build a life. You didn't abandon me." I set my cup down. "Mom, the only thing that matters now is that I'm here. And I'm staying." She covered my hand with hers. "That's all I need." A week later, I accepted a remote engineering position that allowed me to work from home. It wasn't glamorous, and it paid less than my overseas job, but when I told Mom, she hugged me tightly, stronger than I thought she could. "I have my daughter back," she whispered. "That's priceless." Some evenings we walked the neighborhood. Neighbors who once sensed something was wrong now waved with genuine warmth. Mrs. Porter brought over homemade cookies. Mr. Ramirez insisted he'd fix our porch light for free as long as Linda promises to keep smiling. And she did. The woman who once shuffled through this home like a shadow now moved with purpose again. She cooked her favorite meals. She organized her recipes. She talked about repainting her bedroom lavender in the spring. One night, as I tucked her in, she said something I'll never forget. Emma, thank you for saving me. I shook my head, brushing a hair from her forehead. No, Mom. You saved yourself. You just needed someone to stand beside you. She smiled, eyes soft. That someone was you. When I walked to my room, the house felt warm, alive. And for the first time since returning, I felt a sense of stillness wash over me. This wasn't the end of our story. It was the beginning of a new one I would never take for granted again. Because justice didn't just return the house to us. It returned her to me. And it returned me to the place I should have been all along. Home.